You know that feeling, right? That sudden jolt in the sky that makes your heart absolutely jump into your throat. We've all been there. But what happens when that turbulence is, well, more than just a quick scare? What if you actually get hurt? Let's get into what you really need to know. So let's put you in the moment. You're at 35,000 feet and then bam! The plane just drops. It's chaos. Luggage is flying out of the overhead bins, drinks are everywhere, and you get thrown hard into the seat in front of you. Once things calm down, you realize you're actually hurt.
Ouch!
So is this just bad luck? An unavoidable part of flying? Or could the airline actually be responsible for this? Well, the answer to that question, and really the key that unlocks this whole legal maze, it isn't about the turbulence itself. Nope. It all comes down to one single, really important word, a word that decides whether the airline actually failed to keep you safe.
And that gets us right to the heart of the matter. See, suing an airline isn't about trying to blame them for bad weather. You can't sue for a thunderstorm, right? No, it's about proving that they failed in their most basic job, keeping you, their passenger, safe.
And that one word, it's negligence. That's the legal term, the gold standard here. All it really means is this. The airline had a responsibility to take reasonable care of you, they didn't, and because they dropped the ball, you got hurt. It's that simple. See, the turbulence itself, that's just weather. But how the airline responds to it, now that can be negligence. So how in the world do you figure out if an airline was negligent? Well, you have to ask some pretty specific questions. Things like, did the pilots know this bumpy air was coming? Did they get a forecast or maybe a report from another plane? And if they did the crew get that seatbelt sign on fast enough? What about in the cabin? Was a heavy drink cart left rolling around in the aisle? Did something fly out of a bin that wasn't properly latched? And of course, were you following the rules? The answers to these questions are what turn a freak accident into a real legal case.
Okay, but here's where it gets a little tricky. Proving negligence isn't the same everywhere. Not at all. In fact, the rule book completely changes depending on where you're flying. A flight from, say, New York to LA, that's one set of rules. But a flight from New York to London, totally different ballgame.
Let's break that down. If you're on a domestic flight in the US, you're playing by regular personal injury rules, what lawyers call tort law. And what that means for you is that the burden of proof is on you from the get-go. You have to prove the airline was negligent. But on an international flight, everything is governed by this big international treaty called the Montreal Convention. It was designed to make rules the same for everyone, and it has this really unique two-tier system for figuring out who's at fault. And this two-tier system is, honestly, it's a game changer. Here's how it works. Tier 1. For any damages up to a certain amount, it's a limit set by the treaty, the airline is just automatically liable. Period. You don't have to prove they were negligent at all. But what if your injuries are really serious and the costs go above that limit? That's when you hit Tier 2. And this is where the script totally flips. Now it's up to the airline to prove they weren't negligent. The burden shifts from you to them. It's a huge difference. So look, it doesn't matter if your flight falls under US law or the Montreal Convention. What you do right after an injury happens is absolutely critical. It's what sets the stage for everything that follows. So, what should you actually do? This is your playbook for taking control of the situation. Okay, these first 4 steps are your absolute must-dos. They are non-negotiable. First, report your injury to the flight crew right away. You need them to file an incident report. That's your official proof it happened on their plane. Second, the moment you land, get medical help. This isn't just for your health. It creates a paper trail that connects your injury directly to that flight. Third, if it's safe, take pictures of everything, your injuries, the mess in the cabin, whatever. And fourth, get contact info from anyone who saw what happened. This is all about gathering evidence. And all that stuff you just collected, that becomes what I like to call your documentation dossier. Seriously, think of it like a detective's case file. It tells the whole story. Your boarding pass proves you were on that flight, in that seat. The incident report, that's the airline's own record of what went down. Medical bills, they show the extent of the damage. Photos, witness info, every single piece of paper, every digital file helps build a rock-solid timeline that's really hard to argue with. All right, so we've covered what you should do, but what you shouldn't do is just as important. I've seen so many potentially strong cases just completely fall apart because of a few simple, easy-to-avoid mistakes. And trust me, airline legal teams, they are experts at finding these little slip-ups. First mistake, I'll just walk it off. You know the feeling. You're a little banged up, maybe embarrassed, and you just want to get your bags and go home. You think it's not that bad. Big mistake. Delaying gives the airline the perfect excuse. They'll say, hey, how do we know this didn't happen in the taxi on the way home, or when you tripped over your suitcase? Reporting it right away on the plane and then seeing a doctor, that shuts that argument down completely.
Next up, the goodwill trap. The airline might come to you pretty quickly and offer you a flight voucher or some frequent flyer miles. They'll call it a gesture of goodwill. You need to be so careful here. Hidden in the fine print of that nice offer is almost always a waiver. By accepting it, you're signing away your right to sue them for anything else, for medical bills, for lost work, for everything. Always read what you're signing.
And of course, in this day and age, there's the social media minefield. This one is huge. You're going to be tempted to go online and post all about the horrible flight you just had. Don't do it. Just resist the urge. Airline lawyers have teams that do nothing but scrub social media. Every post, every picture, every little comment you make can and absolutely will be used against you to question your story or your injuries. Keep it offline, period.
So, let's wrap this all up. The big takeaway is this. Turbulence happens. It's a fact of air travel. Getting hurt during turbulence doesn't automatically mean it's the airline's fault. A successful claim isn't about the bumpy air. It's about proving that the airline failed to take reasonable care, and that failure is what led directly to your injury. It's all about that chain of events.
Which really leaves us with one final question to think about, doesn't it? When someone gets hurt from turbulence, is it just a random, unpredictable accident, a force of nature? Or is it a failure to prepare for something we all know is a risk of flying? The answer, as we've just seen, is always in the details.